New Orleans is worth putting money into. And if we can make money after putting money into helping the city, helping the people there, helping the culture survive, good, then we're all winners. Dig down in your pockets and support what's important to you, because if we don't, it won't be there. And as far as New Orleans is concerned, music, along with food and things like that, that is the heartbeat of this city. If we ever lost our music, it would not be healthy. It would not be good.
Jeffrey Goldfarb. Education, sustainability, global citizenship. How does that play into sustainable investment from your perspective?
I guess I'll go back to when I first came into the working world. And when I came into the working world, which was many years ago, someone told me, don't chase the dollar, follow your heart and do what makes you happy. Do something with your life that's going to make you happy, and the rest will follow. And so I think that, flipping that over to investing, I think one of the problems that people have and corporations have is that they chase the dollar instead of necessarily looking what the impact of the company that they're putting their money into actually has, just as an example. So I think you got to be true to yourself. If you don't like a company, don't buy it. And if you don't like the CEO, don't buy it, even if they can make you money, because there's a lot of other ways to make money. Historically, what we've seen is that companies that actually follow more sustainable models are more profitable long term. They last longer, and their finances are better because they're not chasing a quick return. They're looking at being around for a while. So that's really where sustainability comes in, and that's one of the things that we look at is companies that follow that path. And to be quite honest with you, it's getting harder.
Looking at New Orleans, cultural sustainability, how does that play, those three values play into New Orleans?
Or a good way to answer that would be last week at the Wien Center, I went with my son, Ari, who also is in our business, and he turned to me and he said, I'm really excited that we're sponsoring this because we're giving back to the community. New Orleans is worth putting money into. And if we can make money after putting money into helping the city, helping the people there, helping the culture survive, good, then we're all winners. And I think, we need to have more win-wins for everybody instead of win-lose or lose-win. It's not a healthy situation when you have a loser and a winner. It's much better when everybody gets something positive out of it. The thing about what I do is that people seem to appreciate it if we teach them, because a lot of people are really financially illiterate. And so if you take the time and you educate them about things, and again, you're not trying to make a buck off of them, you're actually legitimately trying to help them, it works. It winds up being a very sustainable model.
So how did you bring all that to New Orleans?
Okay, well, anyway, the first time I came to New Orleans was 1975 after graduating from college. Came with a good friend of mine, Bill, and we went to Bourbon Street, and the music was really pretty amazing at that time on Bourbon. And that was the first time I came to New Orleans. And then I came back 5 years later to my first Jazz Fest with my wife and a friend of mine from Boston, and then we just kept on coming ever since. And we had a lot of Jazz Fests. A lot of life events were celebrated or not celebrated at Jazz Fests. And and Jazz Fest is a really good intro, I think. I don't think Jazz Fest is what it used to be, but it's a good intro to a lot of things in the city. And we just expanded from there. We wound up living here, we wound up renting a house, and eventually we wound up buying a house, and really committing to the area. New Orleans, I don't think is a place that um, there's any in between. I don't think that it's a place that you sort of like or sort of don't like. I think you either love it or hate it, and we love it. And the culture is one of the things that we do love about it, but I think ultimately the thing that we most love about it is the people. It's an amazing place for the people. You know, it's one place that you can take your dogs for a walk and see somebody that you've never met in your entire life and have an hour-long conversation with them. Other places, especially back up in the Northeast where I'm from originally, you take your dog for a walk, and I know people might disagree with this, but I've taken my dog for a walk many times, and people will be looking at the sidewalk even when I say hello. So we love the people here. It's a pretty amazing place from that standpoint. Culturally, I think it's really important because, and I think one of the reasons that we really do want to contribute for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's historically an African American city. You know, it's a majority African American city. People of color right now are under attack. It's not like people of color have not always been under attack, but right now especially they're under attack. And a lot of the institutions that they're involved in and that can help them are under attack also. So culturally, you know, right now they're looking at cutting back on. I mean, NPR has always been something that's been attacked. Um, so we want to contribute to keep these things afloat until there's a time when, sorry folks, when America wakes up and realizes these things are what make this country amazing and great. Diversity is something that makes this country amazing and great. When I wake up in the morning, I don't want to go to the mirror and see everybody who looks just like me. How boring can life be to look at a bunch of marshmallows, you know, or white bread? I mean, it's pretty damn boring. And you don't learn anything, you know, because so many of those people are coming from the same cultural backgrounds. In some cases, they're coming from a completely psychosocially deprived background. So, you know, bring back measles. So, getting started.
Please.
So anyway, New Orleans is worth the effort, and that's what we believe. And you know, we'll continue doing it as long as we can.
What do you find that's sustainable in the culture?
Culture's sustainable. I mean, it's a city of survivors, right? We survive hurricanes. We survive terrorist attacks. We survive snowstorms. It wasn't any big deal for me to deal with a snowstorm, other than the fact that it was pretty funny seeing everybody trying to deal with a snowstorm because it was so unique here to people who are natives. But you know, it's a city of survivors. We really do survive things, and I might be wrong, but I don't hear as much complaining about it as you might in other places. You know, it's just a different attitude. It's like, okay, well, this is what we're dealing with, so let's deal with it. Instead of, oh man, this really is terrible. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw my hands up and quit. We don't quit here.
You are an expert in finance, so we're going to come back to that educational part because most people are financially illiterate.
I'm connected with New Orleans Musicians Clinic Foundation, and there's a lot of other ones. You know, Ella Project is a good example. There's a bunch that really are supportive of musicians, and one of the things that I've learned from so many of those organizations is musicians do need to get control of their lives financially, and I think some of them do, but I think the younger one. Sorry, folks, if I'm not trying to offend you. But younger people in general, you know, live for the day, you know, so they don't necessarily save money. They don't necessarily know how to, not all young people, but, you know, some young people don't know how to balance a checkbook or things like that. They just live for the day. So I think that from a sustainability standpoint, it's really more survivability, I think, is just being literate, knowing what your money can do and what it needs to do. And so we try to help people along those lines. When we first came here, we had another business, which was Follow the Hummingbird, which worked with startup businesses. And we did a lot of work with startups in the area of handling their finances and knowing where to go for loans and how to get yourself ready to get a business loan and things like that. So that applies to musicians because musicians have to treat their livelihood as a business. Um, LPO does. You know, you have musicians in the LPO that might have $350,000 violins, right? So they know how to deal with it. Successful musicians, I'm thinking in terms of Americana and country, because I like that stuff too. I'm thinking of somebody like Marty Stewart, who's really, really knowledgeable. He's got a great book about, it's a photography book about history of country music, a lot of people that he's dealt with. And so he knows how to capitalize based on the culture and sharing the culture. So I think more and more musicians need to do that. The concern that I have is that things have gotten so bad so quickly that I'm seeing some people sort of throwing up their hands and saying, I give up. And I think that's the thing that we need help with in general. I don't have the answers because there are times that I feel helpless. You know, I mean, I think that we have to figure out as a community how to sustain the things that are important to us and not let you know, the craziness out there drive us into a hole and say I give up and not do anything about it. So that would go with musicians and their money. It would go with so many things, you know, just not giving up and controlling what we control, what we can control.
When you were coming to New Orleans and experiencing the Music Jazz Fest, what were some of the business things that you were thinking when you laid your head on the pillow outside of having too many beers? I mean,
I didn't really think about business when I'd come for Jazz Fest. I mean, Jazz Fest was just fun. And from a business standpoint, I don't even know why we gravitated to New Orleans, because if we were really looking at growth, you'd go to big money places like Houston or Atlanta or things like that. We just like New Orleans. Like I said before, we like the people. We connected with the people. We love the culture. I should say we love the people too, but we love the people. We love the culture. It was just a fit. And that's another lesson that we learned. You know, you've got to, and that's what I started off saying earlier. You've got to have a fit, whether it's your job or your life or where you live or whatever. It's got to be a fit. Personally, I love New Orleans because when I wake up in New Orleans, I know that I'm here. If I woke up in a place like Dallas, it could be anywhere. It's just a gigantic suburb, you know. So New Orleans is very unique on that end of things. So when we came to Jazz Fest, we were always impressed with the uniqueness of it. And yeah, so that's pretty much it.
do you have a music background? Do you play an instrument? Do you sing, dance, tap?
I played a little guitar. I dabbled with the guitar, but no, my son in Buffalo is actually teaching himself guitar, and he's doing pretty well. He's playing pretty well. So we might have a little bit of music in the family, but not me. My passion always has been collecting vinyl.
What's in your collection?
Well, I mean, I'm 70. I'm almost 72 years old, so I've been collecting it for a long time. I used to go to record stores and buy vinyl albums for a couple bucks, and I remember going to one big store in Buffalo and just loading up on Impulse records, all of them, Archie Shepp, John Coltrane, you know, you name it, all the Impulse artists. So I've got a lot of stuff, and it's pretty eclectic because I like all music. I think one of the biggest influences that I've had musically actually has been Graham Parsons. I love Graham Parsons, rest in peace. And he made a lot of really good comments. And one of the things that he said that I'm hearing more and more musicians are saying lately is he wasn't a proponent of genre. He wasn't a proponent of, putting all music in little silos and having them all separated. Okay, well, that's modern jazz and that's bebop and that's this and that's country and that's, it was like, what he called it was cosmic American music. And so it was a fusion of so many things. And I love that. I really love that. And that's why my music collection is eclectic. I've got classical, I've got jazz, I've got everything. So now I'm genreing it, but it all fuses together,
Mhm.
So that's my passion.
And you're wearing a Peaches shirt, so
Hey, they're a neighbor. I love them. They're awesome. They're awesome.
you're sponsoring a series. So the other night you were sitting in the front row and you were listening to contemporary or modern jazz. How does that? And you left here when I talked to you, like you were buzzing.
That was a fantastic show. It was an absolutely fantastic show. Um, I think things like what we do here at the Wien Center and other places, music's very accessible for people. You can French Quarter Fest still is free. Now, granted, they have VIP passes too, but it's still free, and you've got hundreds of thousands of people coming to that thing now, and music in general is very, very accessible, and I think that's really nice. So I was buzzing, and we're sponsors, but I think the ticket is generally like $10, and the music it can't be beat. It's just phenomenal music. You've got things down at the Mint, also called the Jazz Museum. They have had great jazz series there, and you got it all over the place. So it's accessible, and I want to keep it that way because funding's getting cut. As I said before, they are going after NPR right now. I'm not even talking about just social programs. I'm talking about culturals, and funding is being cut. So I would say to anybody who is seeing this, dig down in your pockets. If you have a business or something like that, dig down in your pockets and support what's important to you, because if we don't, it won't be there. And as far as New Orleans is concerned, music, along with food and things like that, that is the heartbeat of this city. If we ever lost our music, it would not be healthy. It would not be good.
Do you feel like you're now connected to the tradition?
I feel like I'm more connected. I mean, I wasn't born here. I do joke with some of my friends who went to St. Aug, and they say, "Where'd you go to school?" I said, "St. Aug." Sometimes they get mad at me. Sorry, I'm only kidding. It's a great school. But I am feeling more connected. I mean, we've been here a while now, but it takes a while to really, I think, feel more like a New Orleanian. And there are days that you just wake up and you like I was saying before about just giving back and not looking at what we're getting, but looking at what we're giving. It takes a while to really embrace that idea, because you're just focused on certain things. Like in business, you're focused on making the business survive and be sustainable and grow and things like that. And you have to realize that the business and businesses in general are part of an ecosystem. And ecosystems that are healthy, everybody's contributing to it. And ecosystems that aren't healthy, not everybody's contributing to it. And those are the ecosystems that'll die. So we are feeling more and more part of the ecosystem locally. And, we want to continue doing that.
Locals may see that newcomers are here to change the tradition.
No, I'm not here to change the tradition. I'm here to support the tradition. And I think that is how we felt right from the start. We loved being part of it. And but like I said, it took a while to actually feel like we were New Orleanians, and but we're not trying to change the tradition. You can't try. It's not healthy for the city. I know there's a lot of things going on right now with French Quarter, and there seems to be some. I don't want to say emphasis. There seems to be some initiatives that are trying to be pushed forward in the French Quarter to make it friendlier to businesses. And on the one hand, I think it's okay because I think you have to have a balance between business and non-business. But the concern that I have is that it's going to be too much one-sided. You know, it's going to be once you cross a certain line, it's allowing everybody to do what's not necessarily sustainable or healthy for the French Quarter. Anything that happens like in the French Quarter has to be consistent with the history and the culture of the French Quarter. It can't be coming in and putting in a bunch of McDonald's. This city, one of the great things about this city is neighborhoods. French Quarter is a neighborhood, right? French Quarter has their own little markets. And so if you live in the French Quarter, you can go and you can shop. You don't have to leave the French Quarter. You can go to, they've got a little Rouse's there. And so it's a great neighborhood. And there's other great neighborhoods that do the same things. They've got their own little shops, and they've got their restaurants and dry cleaners and things like that. It's very, very livable. Once you turn it over to business, it's not going to be livable anymore. It's going to be focusing on bringing in the money from tourists. From a sustainability standpoint, it's got to be consistent with a culture. From a sustainability standpoint, in terms of investing, it's got to be consistent with your values. If you're starting to deviate from what your values are, you're not going to be successful. If you don't believe in fossil fuels, which we don't, if you just say, okay, I'm going to buy ExxonMobil because I think I'm going to make money, but I hate oil and gas, that's terrible. It's a terrible model, and it's doomed. It's absolutely doomed. You're going to wake up every morning hating yourself, and I'm not going to make any investment recommendations, but it probably wouldn't be the greatest investment either. Mm-hmm. But it's got to fit you. You know, again, whether it's culture or investing or anything that you do, you got to be true to yourself. You got to be true to where you are. And like I said before, I think if we think of it in terms of an ecosystem, we've got to be part of the ecosystem. I mean, it's got to be consistent with our culture here. It has to be. And we've lost a lot of it. I mean, a lot of the historical buildings are gone now. A lot of the birthplaces are gone now. And those have been sold out to big interests. And what are the big interests to? Hard Rock Cafe, Hard Rock Hotel. That's what big interests do. It was a bust. It was terribly conceived. And you had 3 or 4 people who were, you know, who died on the scene and never was built. Wasn't consistent with the culture. I mean, you tell me how Hard Rock fits into the French Quarter. It doesn't. So I guess that's a good example of the point that I think that I'm trying to make, is that if you sway and try to impose something that's not natural to that particular environment, it's not gonna survive. It's not sustainable.
You're now an ambassador officially.
Great.
What do you tell people? How do you get the most out of the city? I got 3 days here. What do I do?
Well, historically, I might have said don't go to Bourbon Street. Now I'd say go to Bourbon Street and make a pilgrimage. You know, and just remember the people that were, you know, violently killed there. But New Orleans is not Bourbon Street. I think at one time it might have been. In 1975, when I came, it was different than it is now. And I think we can all acknowledge that. But I think the thing that helped us was just living here, you know, because New Orleans is a beautiful city, and it also has a lot of warts. And you got to learn to laugh at Sewage and Water Board, you know. Oh, we just got our bill. It was miscalculated. We owe $10,000. I guess we'll have to call them. Oh, well, they reduced it to $9,500. Those are things that can happen if you live here, right? But you learn how to deal with it. And I think that's one of the things as an ambassador, I would say. Any of the negatives that happen here could happen any place in the world. The positives can't. The positives that we get out of here cannot happen anywhere in the world. And if you, one of the things that helped us, just drawing back on my personal history with my family, one of the things that helped us was just meeting people, talking to people, um, hearing what they had to say, learning about their lives, um, getting to know people in the arts community. My wife's a photographer. She is connected with the photographic community and knows a lot of people there. Um, we have friends who are Black Masking Indians. Um, and, when you get to know these people who are just people, but they are supporting their culture, you get to learn the city. And you also get to know what needs to be helped, because all of these traditions are at risk right now. Black Masking Indians tradition is serious. I might be wrong, correct me, but I think that it is at risk because a lot of the people in it are older. And the question is the younger generation going to pick up the pieces and do the traditions that the older generation did? You know, I've had conversations with people, they say, well, the kids, they like to be on their computers and play games and go out and make a quick buck and things like that. So, and this isn't a blanket statement, and it's not just Black Masking Indian culture. It's a lot. It's pretty much any culture. Um, we go to Lafayette for Festival Acadian. Cajun culture, same thing. They're working really hard to preserve it. If I was an ambassador, I would say, don't go to Bourbon Street. Get to know the people. Um, find out what really excites you. Definitely enjoy the music because there's so much of it. Enjoy the food because there's so much of it. But especially enjoy the people and listen to them. Hear their stories, hear what their dreams are, hear what their fears are, and see if you can help.
Give me a quick investment lesson for my daughter who's wanting to go down the creative path, go to NOCA, play an instrument, do dance.
Education is the first thing. You take advantage of the education that you have here. I mentioned a great high school or great school before, St. Aug's, but there's a lot of schools that offer things like music and arts and whatever. So I think that I would say that you have to be aware, like you mentioned NOCA, you've got to be aware of the opportunities that are here that are presenting themselves and try to take advantage of those. But I think that organizations like Jazz and Heritage, NOCA, um, those are two that jump off the top of my tongue. Um, if they don't have opportunities, they could probably direct somebody to find them. I also think that maybe it's sort of dull, but if somebody is really serious about it, maybe do career counseling. And there's two reasons for it. Number one, career counseling could give you a fallback but it could also enlighten you in terms of things that you really do have strong aptitudes for. Like, for example, if we're talking about music, you could have somebody who's an artist who is playing music, but you could also have somebody like you who's doing videos. You could also have photography. You could also have music production. There's so many things that are related to it. And if somebody is truly interested in it, if they're in high school, go to your counselor. If they're not in high school, go to a career counselor and find out where your strong aptitudes are, and then pursue those. Because maybe they're not being realistic. Maybe they play the sax, but they're okay. But they're the guy outside of the Pelicans games who plays Annie all the time, and that's where it begins and ends. But they might have a strong aptitude towards something else in the industry, and that might make them really happy. So I would say that would be something that would be really important. And mentorship, I think that's really important too.
What about financial education?
Financial education is critical as long as you are making money. I mean, they have to have some source of income. And the first thing that they have to do, if you have any source of income, is to save something. Um, you have to save something. You just have to save something. Because if you're young, even if you save $50 a month, if you're 20 years old, that $50 a month is going to grow exponentially by the time you're 60 if you just kept it going. Now, if you're working and you can increase that 50 a month to 100 or 200 or whatever, it's going to grow even more exponentially. But the point being is that everything that comes in cannot be spent. That's a lesson that has to be learned. You have to carve out a part of it and treat yourself like a bill. Okay, I'm writing myself a bill, $50. That would be one thing. Don't fall for easy credit. One of the things that we have to be careful of right now is interest rates are low, and getting credit might be a lot easier moving forward. And so what winds up happening is that people wake up one day and say, wow, I've got $50,000 on this credit card. Guess what? You're not going to get that thing paid off unless you're making a lot of money. So don't fall for easy credit, but you have to establish credit too. And you have to learn how to use credit effectively, because using somebody else's money, especially in a low interest rate environment, is not the worst thing in the world to do, but you have to be responsible with it and use it responsibly. Use it for things that make sense. Don't use it for things that are frivolous, things along those lines. So I would say saving, debt. Those are two of the biggest things I would say, would be very, very important. Learn how to balance your checkbook. Get on auto pay if you can. Why is that? Because auto pay guarantees that you're going to have a good credit score, because you're never going to miss a payment, right? So get on auto pay. Those things are important. Once you get to a point where you have a credit card, get a credit card that fits your lifestyle, that if that's the only thing that you're using, you're going to get perks from it that you can use, whether it's for whatever, going shopping, you got points, travel, you got points, airlines, you have points, things like that. But obviously that's not where you're starting, but it can be. If you are starting, get a credit card that fits you.
Wow.
Got to remember, I've been doing it a long time. I've made mistakes myself over the years, so you learn from mistakes too.
Okay. Well, we covered it. I think the audience now understands sustainability and the importance and the education, and as it relates to all of the above.
I hope so. I'm not quite sure I do, but no, I hope that people understand sustainability. I think again, I think that it has to be looked at just from the standpoint of, we're one global family, and we have to support each other, and we're also an ecosystem. We just got back from Costa Rica in December, and it was really educational. It was really educational, the rainforests, because you can see how ecosystems truly work and how beautiful they really are. And ecosystems don't just have to be in a rainforest. They can be in New Orleans. They can be in Buffalo, New York. They can be in a lot of places. So